On Father's Day, my son gave his father-in-law a $250,000 car and gave me a pair of $25 flip-flops. He came driving up in the new car, opened the gate all excited and shouted, "Look at this, Pops. Happy Father's Day." The family applauded, took photos, laughed. His father-in-law took a spin around the yard, honking here and there, and I got a grocery bag with the flip-flops inside. Not even a box. And then he added, "Here you go, Dad, for you to use in the shop." I sat there with that bag in my lap, staring at the ground. On the outside, a forced smile. On the inside, just emptiness. And it wasn't the first time. My name has been pushed aside for a while now. But that day they did it in a way that everyone saw, without shame, without filter. What used to be veiled contempt became public mockery, and there I was like dead weight at other people's party. My name is Orlando, I'm 74 years old, born in Bakersfield, raised the hard way, been a shop man since I was 14. It was with grease under my fingernails and the smell of diesel oil on my clothes that I raised my only son alone. His mother left when he was still in diapers. I gave him school, food, dignity. I did everything with a stern face and an open heart. I never asked for recognition, but I also never accepted being treated like trash. Before continuing this story, I'd like to thank the Coffee with Grandpa channel for the opportunity to let me tell my story. I ask you who are watching to help this channel by subscribing and also comment what city you're listening from. There's a new story every day. That lunch wasn't a surprise, it was just confirmation of what I'd been feeling for years. The difference is that this time he laid it out in the open, threw it in my face that he'd replaced me, that his wife's father, a man he met as an adult, was now the real father. He said this out loud in front of me, without any shame at all. Mariana, my daughter-in-law, was filming everything with her phone. The kids were laughing at their grandfather inside the car and I was sitting in a corner alone with a poorly wrapped piece of a gift in my lap. Nobody came to hug me. Nobody took a photo with me. I was just an old man with a bad foot and tired memory. I stayed quiet because humiliation like that doesn't get answered with words, it gets answered with action, but not in front of an audience. I went home early. I made up that I wasn't feeling well. And it was true, because there's no physical pain that compares to the feeling of being forgotten while you're present. I got home, dropped the little bag in the corner of the couch and sat without saying anything. I stayed there staring at nothing, with my head full of thoughts and my heart empty. I didn't cry that day, or the following ones. I spent the next few days like always, opening the shop at 7, sweeping the sidewalk, serving customers, pretending everything was normal, but inside it wasn't. That phrase of his wouldn't leave my head, "This one's for my father-in-law who I consider like a father." When a son says that, it's not a figure of speech, it's a message, it's a public demotion. He could have said anything, could have respected me in silence, but he made sure to step on me right there in front of everyone, because it wasn't just about the gift, it was about the value. He's been changing neighborhoods, changing his ways, changing his tone of voice for a while now. The shop was left behind, like it was a dirty memory from his childhood. Mariana never bothered to hide her discomfort with me, always treated me like a social obligation. And now with this car it became clear. His loyalty is with her father, with what gives status. But I wasn't born to play the fool. I might be old, but I'm not blind, nor stupid. I don't need to shout or fight. I've lived too long to know that those who talk too much give themselves away too early. Not me. I waited, I observed, I kept everything. There was a moment when he passed by me on his way out, patted my shoulder twice and said, "We'll talk later, okay, Dad?" I just nodded. I didn't say anything, didn't need to. He didn't see that at that exact moment his father died for me. Not really, of course, but the present father, the available father, the father who always put himself last. That one was buried right there at that barbecue. That night, I sat on the porch and stayed silent. I didn't even turn on the radio. The flip-flops were still in the corner of the couch, just as they came, closed, cold, unimportant. I looked at them for a few seconds and then turned away. That wasn't a gift, it was just a reminder, you don't matter anymore. I knew I wouldn't forget that, it wouldn't pass, wouldn't become a family joke and, more importantly, it wouldn't stay like that. But I also knew it wasn't with shouting that I'd resolve it, it was with time, with silence, with firmness, because there's humiliation that can only be answered with dignity. I left that grocery bag in the corner of the couch for days, didn't even touch it. I'd walk by it, glance at it and keep going, as if the simple act of touching it would lower me even more. It wasn't just the flip-flops, it was what they represented. A son who decided in front of everyone that I wasn't worth anything anymore. A son who thought he could reduce me to a pair of $25 flip-flops after giving a $250,000 car to the father-in-law he considers like a father. The phrase still echoed in my ears, as if it had been whispered inside me, "This one's for my father-in-law who I consider like a father." In other times, this might have made me cry. Today it did something else, it made me think. And when an old man starts thinking calmly, it's a sign that something is changing inside. I opened the shop every day, as always, but the routine no longer fulfilled me. I'd change belts, do alignments, wipe the service counter, but my head was somewhere else. Every customer who entered, every honk in the street, every voice I heard, reminded me that I was no longer part of his world, my own son's world. The penny had dropped. And, unlike other years, this time I wasn't going to let it slide. I'm from a time when fathers didn't need to justify themselves. We showed love with food on the table, bills paid, and presents. And I was all of that. Constant presence, even when I had no strength. Present at report cards, during bronchitis attacks, adolescent fights, birthdays without parties. I gave the little I had and a little more, but none of the little I gave turned into memories for him. He only keeps what doesn't embarrass him. And I, apparently, became a source of embarrassment. Mariana never liked me. I already knew that. Always looked at me like I was some folkloric figure in the family. Her father, yes, was always exalted. Businessman, well-dressed, smooth talker, new car every year. I'm just the old man from the shop with the smell of oil and calloused fingers. She always wanted distance and, apparently, she got it. But this time I also started wanting it. One afternoon, I sat on the shop's porch with black coffee in a chipped enamel mug and watched the street movement. I remembered an old scene. My son must have been about 10. He asked me for a video game. I didn't have any money at all. I sold my bedside radio, an old cassette player I'd kept from my father's time, just to complete the amount. I gave it to him in a cardboard box with a handwritten note. He hugged me like I was the superhero of his life. And now? Flip-flops from the grocery store, wrong size, no note, nothing. It was that week I started going through some old folders at the back of the shop's closet. There was a thick envelope, full of documents from when I bought 2 small properties here in the neighborhood, one of them rented out to this day and the other was what I had left for my son to use as a location for his wife's clinic. I didn't even remember well because I'd done everything impulsively out of love. I made the contract in Mariana's name. I never charged rent, just asked them to take care of the place. Sitting there on the floor, with the papers in hand and the shop light reflecting on the aluminum gate, I realized. Even this he erased. Even this he ignored. They used the property for years and when it came time to be grateful, he gave a car to his father-in-law and flip-flops to his father. I didn't cry, just took a deep breath. I thought, okay, now I understand everything. The next day, I received a message from him, "Dad, are you okay?" I replied with, "I'm fine." 2 minutes later, he sent another, "Are you upset about that lunch?" Silence. I didn't respond. He called. I answered. "Dad. Look, don't take it the wrong way, okay? That car was Mariana's thing. She wanted to surprise her father. And well, you know how it is, right? When a woman decides to throw a party, nobody can stop her. The flip-flops were from the heart, you know? I chose them myself. I closed my eyes, breathed and said just one thing, okay. He stayed silent on the other end and then let out the phrase that made me understand everything, "Dad, just don't do anything rash, okay? Please." There it was. Fear, not guilt. Fear. Fear of losing what he still uses. Fear of what I might do. Not because he respects me, but because he realized he'd crossed the line, but it was too late. I didn't respond, just hung up. I went back to the shop bench, wiped the counter, took my old notebook, the one where I write down ordered parts, and wrote a phrase in the corner of the last page: silence is also an answer, and sometimes it's the one that hurts most. At the end of that afternoon, I went inside, looked at the grocery bag again and, finally, took the flip-flops. I opened the plastic slowly, took out both feet and put them on the floor. Then I sat, looked at them for a few seconds and threw them straight in the trash. Not with anger, with clarity. It wasn't just about the gift, it was about what I accepted or not in my life from then on. And I had decided. I would never again allow being belittled by anyone, not even by blood. The first thing I did that Monday was go to the stationery store and buy a new folder, navy blue, firm plastic. I went in, chose without saying anything, paid in cash and put it in my backpack. Then I went straight to the city's registry office. I didn't talk to anyone. I took a number, waited my turn sitting. And when they called, I went to the counter with the calm of someone who's in no hurry, but knows exactly what they're doing. I asked for certified copies of the property documents. That same one my daughter-in-law uses for her clinic since they got married. The clerk looked up the lot number and confirmed the owner's name. She confirmed quietly. Everything was in my name, the deed, the registration, and the property tax booklet. I never transferred, never sold, never donated. They were just occupying what was mine and, perhaps out of habit, they forgot that. I went home and put the documents in the folder. I locked it with a double rubber band. I stored it in the back of the shop's closet, behind the precision tools that only I touch. Nobody touches there, nobody suspects. And there it stayed, but not for revenge, for justice. I didn't tell anyone, didn't comment to Julio, my helper. I just continued my routine, as if nothing was happening. But every step I took inside my shop was firmer. Every customer who entered, every part one organized, I did with a different posture, because now I knew what was worth something, and even more I knew what I had stopped allowing myself to be humiliated by. On Tuesday, Mariana sent me a message for the first time in months. "Hi, Mr. Orlando. How are you? If you can, stop by the clinic any day. The kids miss you." I read it. Didn't respond. Deleted it. They always do this. They disappear, despise, and then throw an empty gesture, trying to maintain the appearance of closeness. But I no longer needed appearances. I needed respect, and where there isn't any, I don't step. At the end of the week, my son showed up at the shop. First time since that lunch. He had his usual face, dress shirt with rolled sleeves and cologne too expensive for a man who never sweated to make a living. He entered with a fake smile. "Hey Dad, how are you?" I looked up, wiped my hand with the dirty rag and answered with the same calm, "Working." He stood there in the corner, as if he'd forgotten what the place was like. He looked around as if he were a visitor. He was. "It's been a while since we've seen each other, hasn't it? Mariana even mentioned stopping by here with the boys." I stayed quiet. He forced it, "And thanks for that little space you lent to the clinic. Mariana says it's our favorite place in the world. Very grateful indeed. Little space." I swallowed hard. I continued folding rags. "But then, everything's okay, right?" I looked up slowly. "Everything's in its place." He smiled, half relieved, half uneasy. "Great, anything you need I'm around." And he left. I stood there, with my hand resting on the bench, breathing deeply, because now it was clear, he knew, or at least suspected, and was trying to probe, see how far I'd go, how far he could go. Fear was already starting to appear, even if disguised as smooth talk. That same day, at the end of the afternoon, I went to a trusted real estate office, one of those old ones, that still smells like paper and brewed coffee. I talked to Arnaldo, an old friend from the time when I bought the first lots in the neighborhood. I took the documentation with me, asked for discretion, Said I wanted to evaluate the property. Quietly, he asked, "Going to sell?" I answered without hesitation, "Maybe." He smiled, "Should have done this a long time ago." And I understood. Even he had seen it. I went home with the certainty that I was doing the right thing. Because there are things we let slide out of love, but there are things we can't let slide out of dignity. And the difference between the two is that love accepts, but dignity corrects. And I was ready to correct. That night, I sat by the shop gate with a mug of coffee and kept remembering an old scene. My son must have been about 17, came home upset because his sneakers were torn. Said he wouldn't go to school like that. I had just paid the electric bill with what was left of the month. Even so, the next day, I went downtown and financed sneakers in 6 installments. I gave them to him in the afternoon, wrapped in newspaper, with a written note, "It's not the most expensive, but it's the most I can do." He hugged me crying and now doesn't even have the courage to look in my eyes. I closed my eyes and spoke quietly, just to myself, "Everything's in its place, my son, for now." Arnaldo's evaluation arrived 2 days later. When I opened the envelope and read the market value of the property, I felt a dry taste in my mouth. Over $400,000. And to think that for more than 5 years they used that space as if it were theirs, without paying rent, without thanking, without even looking back. What was once my sacrifice, the sweat of years bending iron and tightening screws, became a luxury setting for someone who never dirtied their hands. They just forgot one detail: it wasn't theirs. I didn't reply to Arnaldo's email, but I printed the evaluation and put it inside the blue folder. I closed it with double rubber band and hid it again behind the shop tools. I was in no hurry. Real justice doesn't shout. It prepares itself in silence, day by day, step by step. On Friday, Mariana showed up at the shop. First time in years. She was well dressed. Sunglasses, light makeup, hair in a bun. She parked the imported car in front of the sidewalk and got out with a fake smile on her face. "Hi, Mr. Orlando, I missed you." I looked slowly, took off the dirty glove and answered, "Good afternoon." She approached slowly, like someone stepping in a minefield. "So, I wanted to thank you for your constant support. The clinic is doing super well. You know, right? That location is perfect." I nodded, "It's a great spot." She tried to make conversation, "And the grandkids? Do you miss them?" "I'm busy." She smiled yellow, "Well, anything we're around. Bye-bye." And she left. But that bye wasn't goodbye, it was a warning. They were starting to feel that I was no longer the same, that I no longer smiled, no longer accepted, no longer said amen. And when the father starts not responding, the son starts worrying, but not out of love, out of fear. The following week, I went to the accountant, who handled some old declarations of mine. I took everything, the contracts, the receipts, the property records. Said I wanted to review everything. He asked if I wanted to sell. Said maybe. But before that I wanted to regularize whatever was needed without fanfare. He understood because those who lived long know how to read another's look. And my look said, "The time has come." I spent the whole week without answering any messages from my son. He sent 3, "Hi Dad, everything okay? Stop by here any day to see the boys." And finally, did something happen? None were answered. And each of my silences seemed to weigh more than any response, because now it was he who was starting to chase after me. And not out of love, out of interest, because deep down he knew he had gone too far. He just didn't know yet what it would cost. On Saturday, I went to the registry office, asked for property registration update, requested a clean title certificate. All in secrecy. The clerk asked, "Going to change ownership?" I looked in his eyes and said, "Not yet, but I'm thinking about it." I walked home slowly. Each step of mine had a different weight. Now I wasn't getting revenge. I was taking care of the only thing I had left, my name. Because if I died tomorrow, I wanted to leave with the certainty that I wasn't made a fool, that I left with my head high, that I wasn't an ungrateful son's doormat. That night I wrote on a paper, there are things we lose, but there are things we take from the hands of those who never deserved them. I folded it, kept it in the folder along with the other documents. The folder now seemed heavy, as if each paper was a stone pulled from my chest, but it didn't hurt anymore. Now I only felt firmness and inside a silence that shouted louder than any argument. On Sunday, day off, he showed up without warning. Came alone in a new car and entered the shop with a fake smile. "Dad, we need to talk." I wiped my hand, took the rag from my shoulder and faced him. "Talk." "Mariana is worried. We thought you might be, I don't know, upset." I stayed silent. He continued, "Look, Dad, I know that lunch wasn't what you expected, but it was all improvised. Mariana planned the car for her father, I didn't even know really. And the flip-flops? Well, they were from the heart." I stopped him with a hand gesture. "You don't need to explain. I understood everything." "Understood what?" "I understood my place." He stayed quiet. The air got heavy and then he let out, "Dad, you're not going to kick us out of the clinic, are you?" I looked firmly. "It was never yours." He went pale. "But you never said anything, always let us use it." "That was my mistake." Silence. "Dad, please. We invested there. There's renovation, patient contracts. You figure it out. I'm just going to do what's right." He tried one last appeal, "Dad, don't do this." But I had already gotten up and turned my back. I went to the gate and opened it. "Good afternoon." He stood there for a few seconds. Didn't know whether to insist or leave, but he understood. I was no longer the same and now he had lost the right to even call this a surprise. On Monday, at 8 a.m. sharp, I was already in Dr. Alvaro's office. He's a trusted lawyer, an old friend from my youth, who now works by appointment only. When he saw me, he got up with that same calm way as always and said, "Orlando, it's been a while, huh?" "Indeed, but today it's serious business." He closed the office door, we sat and I went straight to the point. I took the blue folder from my backpack and handed it to him. I said everything clearly and without venting. "I want to block any legal possibility of them selling, transferring or claiming this property. It's in my name, but I want to leave this written, signed and registered." He opened the documents, read silently for about 10 minutes, then closed slowly and looked at me like someone who already understood everything. "Do you want them to know about this?" "I don't want them to find out through other means, and when they find out it will already be done." He nodded respectfully, like someone seeing a man who doesn't speak out of anger, but out of decision. "It will work. But from today anything related to this property will have legal backing. Do you want me to send a notification? If they try to use it as credit guarantee, loan or renovation. I want everything in writing. Family matter or professional. It's an end-of-line matter." I left there lighter. For the first time in years, I felt I was reclaiming my space. And the best part, without needing to raise my voice, without needing to prove anything to anyone. I was no longer trying to teach, I was protecting what was left. At the end of the afternoon, I stopped on my shop's sidewalk and watched the orange sky. On the other sidewalk, a father was helping his son ride a bicycle and, for a moment, I felt a lump in my throat, not from nostalgia, but from realizing that time had already passed for me. And no matter how much I did everything right, nothing prevents a son from growing up and erasing you. But now he won't be able to do it in silence. On Tuesday the calls started. First, Mariana. I turned on the phone and saw 9 missed calls, short messages, direct, full of dots and nervousness. "Mr. Orlando, we need to talk urgently. Please give us a call back. It's serious." Then it was my son's turn. This time he didn't try to hide the desperation. "Dad, for the love of God, we need to talk. The clinic is going to stop. We invested a lot, Dad." I read and put the phone in the shop drawer. I didn't respond. The next day, they came to my door. Both of them. They were different. There was no smile or polite phrase. Mariana was pale, holding her phone with their lawyer on the other end of the line. my son with his head down trying to seem calm. Dad, we received a legal notice. The property has usage restrictions. What's happening? It's going back to the owner. But how? You always said it was ours. No, I let you use it out of consideration, but that's over now. Mariana jumped in the middle. This is going to hurt us. We have scheduled patients, signed contracts, employees. You figure it out. The problem isn't mine. She tried to appeal. Do you want money? We can negotiate, pay rent. I looked in her eyes. I don't want anything, just what's mine back. My son crossed his arms. This is revenge? No, it's justice. Dad, for the love of God, don't call me Dad. Only now you remember I'm a father. When did you only remember that I was a father? Silence. They stood there looking at me, waiting for me to back down, but there was no going back. Inside there were no more bridges. Just the certainty that if I died the next day, at least I would have done one thing right. I didn't let them laugh at me forever. I spoke low, but firmly. You've used too much, sucked too much. Now you have two choices. Find another place or go to court. But I warn you, the documents are all in my name and this time there won't be hugs or excuses. They left in silence. No tears, no pretty phrase, no forgive me and thank goodness, because any word at that moment would have been another attempt to disguise what can't be fixed. That night I went to the kitchen, made strong coffee and sat in the porch chair. I opened the shop notebook and wrote just one phrase in the middle of the page. I wasn't the perfect father, but I was present and now I was just. 2 days after their visit, the movement at the clinic door had already changed. The cars weren't there anymore. The patient flow had decreased. I even saw a delivery van arrive, but being dismissed by the secretary on the sidewalk. One of the street neighbors commented, "I think they're closing for renovation." I just nodded without saying anything, but inside I knew. It wasn't renovation, it was consequence. And this time I wasn't going to stop it. That morning, I sat in the back of the shop, on the same crate where I sat so many times to tie my dirty shoes or rest my tired body after changing engines. But now I wasn't tired, I was firm and for the first time in a long time, with the feeling that I wasn't betraying myself, because for years I accepted crumbs disguised as affection. And all I got was cheap flip-flops and public humiliation. Now it was I who defined the size of my silence. My son didn't show up anymore, but messages came through third parties. A mutual friend from the shop stopped by and said, "Orlando, I heard that the clinic people are trying to reach you. Seems like they lost a big contract with an insurance company. The place no longer has proper authorization to operate without updated documentation." I just replied, "Life teaches." "Are you well?" "I am." And I continued my work. I started noticing that he also stopped posting on social media. Before it was every day. Photos of the clinic, patient testimonials, gratitude videos. Now silence. No family photos, no little heroic father texts on the feed. Everything disappeared, because when the image falls apart, pride shrinks. And the world they had built, made of appearances, could no longer sustain itself without the foundation they had pretended to forget. The following week I was called to the registry office to sign the registration update with officially cancelled usage terms. I went alone, as always, took my ID, my old documents and left there with an even lighter folder. Everything was now official, untouchable, irreversible. On the way back, I decided to walk. I passed through streets I hadn't crossed in years. I saw the square where I pushed my son on the swing until he fell asleep in my lap. I saw the corner where he learned to ride a bike after falling 4 times. I saw the wall he scribbled on when he was 8 and wrote, "Dad, I love you," with charcoal. That hit me in the stomach, but didn't make me back down, because that boy disappeared a long time ago. That same day, when I got home, I found a white envelope under the gate, no sender. I opened it. It was a handwritten letter. It was from him. "Dad, I know I crossed the line. I know I hurt you. We got carried away with the moment, with appearances, and forgot the essential. Will you forgive me, Dad? Can we talk? I don't want to lose you. I read the letter once. Then again. And then I folded it carefully, kept it inside the same blue folder, along with the documents, along with everything, but I didn't respond, didn't call, didn't write, not because I hate, but because I learned. What he wanted wasn't to talk, it was to reverse. And I had already decided I wouldn't go back. On Saturday, I went downtown. I bought a new chain for the shop gate. I also bought an acrylic sign, one of those to hang. I had it written in white letters, "Silence is also an answer." I nailed it next to the entrance door. Every customer who enters now sees and many understand. In the afternoon I received an unexpected visit. My oldest granddaughter, 9 years old, knocked on the door with her backpack, brought by a neighbor. "Grandpa, can I stay here for a bit?" I nodded, gave her water, cheese bread, sat with her in the living room. We stayed quiet for a while. Then she looked at me and said, "Is Mommy sad?" "I know." She said, "Grandpa is angry." "I'm not angry, just quiet. But I like you. And I like you too." She smiled and I didn't cry because I knew the children weren't to blame, but I also knew I couldn't be used emotionally by anyone, not even by a grandchild, because those who don't respect me as a father don't get me back as a grandfather. She stayed there for an hour drawing in her notebook. Then the neighbor came to get her. Before leaving, she hugged me, tight, long, sincere, and left without understanding anything. Maybe one day she'll understand, and maybe when she's an adult, she'll remember that her grandfather didn't bow his head to humiliation. That night, I sat on the bed, took the shop notebook and wrote, "Being quiet is easy. Hard is staying quiet when everything around begs for a retreat, but I don't retreat anymore." It was on a Tuesday morning that I saw the sign being hung. A young man, real estate uniform, nailed it to the front gate with thick tape, "Property available for rent, contact the office." From across the street, I just watched, with the greasy rag hanging on my shoulder and my hand resting on the hood of a 2004 Celta. I didn't approach, didn't ask anything, but I knew exactly what had happened. Their clinic closed. 2 days before the movements had already started. I saw a van parked for hours there in front, taking boxes, bags, plants, mirrors. No patients, no employees, just my son with a dejected face and Mariana, in sunglasses and a locked face of shame. Neither crossed the street, neither looked at the shop, and I didn't go after them either, because those who need an audience to suffer still haven't learned anything. That afternoon I received the visit of a new young man at the shop, beginner mechanic, who asked to do an internship with me. I kept looking at him for a while, in silence. I remembered myself at his age, patching tires and asking for discounts on used parts. I also remembered my son, who once said he wanted to be like his father and now could barely look at me. I accepted the boy, not out of compassion, but because I realized that teaching someone who wants to learn is very different from insisting with someone who has already decided to forget you. At night, I received an unexpected call. It was from the real estate office. "Mr. Orlando, good evening. Would you like to authorize the ad renewal on the website?" "Yes, we already have 2 clinics interested. The property is valued, especially for being renovated. The renovation I leave as a gift. The name on the deed remains the same." I hung up. I sat in the porch chair. I turned on the radio low. I let time pass in silence. I thought about everything I had done for him. From the fever at 7 years old to the Volkswagen Beetle I gave him on his 18th birthday. I thought about how much it hurt not to be recognized and how much now it hurt less, because I had done what I needed to do and no one could take that away from me anymore. The next morning, I saw Mariana driving by with the children. She drove slowly, looking around. When she got in front of the shop, she slowed down. The children looked, waved. She didn't, but I waved back to the little ones discreetly. Like saying, "I'm here, but not in the same way." And I continued my day. That week, the neighborhood started commenting. A neighbor stopped me at the market. "Hey, Orlando, I heard you own that clinic spot. Look at that. And us thinking it belonged to your son-in-law." Many people thought many things. And they said you kicked them out of there. I didn't kick them out. I just closed the door I left open too long. She stayed quiet and I continued pushing the cart between the rice and oil shelf, because I owed no explanation to anyone. I didn't make a scandal, didn't publish anything, didn't shout justice on the internet, just did what was mine by right. And if there's something that hurts more than being forgotten, it's being remembered too late. On Saturday, I received the official notice of renunciation of possession by Mariana. Their lawyer filed everything properly. They were handing over the keys, not out of politeness, out of exhaustion. They knew it was no use trying to convince, threaten, or ask anymore. The keys arrived in a brown envelope, with a white label and printed letters. They delivered them to my hand. The doorman didn't even have the courage to ask, just said, "There's something here for you, and it looks heavy." Heavy wasn't the envelope, it was the silence it carried. I opened it alone in the shop kitchen. I took out the keys, recognized each one, the entrance, the glass door, the back room. I threw them all in a small stainless steel tray I used to organize screws. They